Our elders are our most precious resource, and we ask that you respect their homes and their space.
Tonight, COVID-19 claims the life of an elder from the Blood Tribe in southern Alberta.
It's as though I'm at home. I am at home in this place.
A Vancouver homeless park is cleared out.
Women in our culture traditionally are the head of the household. They're the matriarchs. They look after the family.
And women in Saskatoon gather to bring strength to communities impacted by COVID-19. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Black MPs and senators say more must be done to end racism. So says a statement sent out earlier today and endorsed by dozens of members of Parliament, including cabinet ministers. But as Todd Lamoran reports, the answers from politicians will sound very familiar to Indigenous people.
Employment Minister Carla Qualtra is among those who endorsed the letter, and today called it a really important document.
This is a really important document because it commits all of us to have those systemic conversations to challenge the assumptions that have been underlying how we make policy, how we deliver programs, how we design systems, because they don't include everyone from the start.
The statement asks for racism to end and reads in part, "We urge all governments to act immediately. This is not a time for further discussion. The Afro-Canadian community has spoken for many years and is no longer interested in continued consultation or study." The Prime Minister was asked about one immediate action, ending mandatory minimum sentencing, blamed for the overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous people in prison.
There's a clear message today from the Parliamentary Black Caucus to that effect, and we're going to continue to look at that and other measures that we can move forward to make sure that our justice system does not continue to be unfair towards racialized Canadians and Indigenous Canadians.
Ministers at the COVID briefing were reminded that ending these sentences was a 2015 election promise, one championed by former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould. Treasury Board President Jean-Yves Duclos said it's still on the table.
I can assure you that we haven't cast that idea aside. We are looking at a number of measures. That's one of the ideas, and this is an issue that is dear to our hearts.
Inside the House, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh continued to pressure the Prime Minister over the RCMP and its shootings of Indigenous people.
Is the Prime Minister committed to a full-scale overhaul of the RCMP to root out systemic racism?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As I've said many times, Mr. Speaker, I am committed to addressing systemic racism in this country and taking significant, bold actions to reduce the amount of discrimination that Indigenous peoples, that racialized Canadians face on a daily basis.
Meanwhile, Ontario Regional Chief Roseanne Archibald requested that this year's Indigenous Day on June 21st become a National Day of Action for Justice. Todd Lamoran, APTN National News, Ottawa.
A rally outside of an Edmonton courthouse today as there was a bail hearing for the latest man charged with second-degree murder in the deaths of two Métis hunters. Dozens gathered outside the law courts demanding justice for 39-year-old Jacob Sampson and 57-year-old Maurice Cardinal. The two were found dead outside a parked truck on March 27th near Glendon with gunshot wounds.
It seems like there's a broken system here, and we need to have the proper justice. There's too many questions of why this could have even happened, and there shouldn't be any questions like that ever. They should have made it home. 5 minutes from the driveway where they left, they were stopped. This is not right.
Two men who police confirm are related have both been charged with second-degree murder. Today's bail hearing is for Anthony Michael Bellido. 56-year-old Roger Bellido will appear in court on Thursday. The Blood Tribe in southern Alberta has announced one of its elders has died from complications due to COVID-19.
Our elders are our most precious resource, and we ask that you respect their homes and their space. They are a vulnerable population and could experience complications easily.
Tribe leaders have not released the name of the elder, but say the curve has not yet flattened. While Phase 2 of Alberta's relaunch strategy is well underway, the blood reserve is still in a state of emergency, and those not following recommendations put in place by the health department could be fined. Shelters have been provided to those living in overcrowded homes, especially homes with elders present. A group of homeless people who made an encampment on Port Authority land near downtown Vancouver say they have no other options. Last week, a judge issued an injunction to have Crab Park cleared. Supporters came out to show their support, and advocates say they want permanent housing. Vancouver has offered hotel rooms for the homeless, but the 100 or so people here say the hotels would not take their pets, and there are nowhere to store their belongings.
It's as though I'm at home. I am at home in this place, and these are people that are part of my community that help me be safe. These people that are in these tents keep me safe and feeling comfortable and feeling like I belong.
The injunction against the residents of Crab Park was to go into effect on Saturday, but this morning Vancouver police moved in to clear the new tent city. Police arrived at dawn to clear the tent city, which had been erected in early May. The police department issued a statement that officers were, quote, working with demonstrators to clear the area. One person was arrested but was released a short time later with no charges. Coming up, Indigenous journalists have been speaking out about their experiences in newsrooms. We'll hear from one after the break. Here's a look at Wednesday's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, sunny and 30 for Fredericton, 28 under the sun in Halifax, 9 with showers in Nain, 13 and rain in Cartwright, 31 under sunny skies in Montreal, 33 in Saguenay, 27 in Toronto, 30 and sunny for Ottawa, 28 under the sun in Thunder Bay, 32 in Sioux Lookout, 8 is the high in Churchill, 17 with showers for God's Lake, 32 with the chance of rain in Winnipeg and Gimli, 15 and showers in Saskatoon, 20 with rain for Regina, 16 and rain in Meadow Lake, Stony Rapids, and Uranium City. Welcome back. The resignation of CBC Radio Yukon morning host Christine Genier is shining a light on a lack of diversity in Canadian media. On June 8th, following comments she made on air about challenges she has faced at the national broadcaster, Genier resigned. She is a member of the Tayanquatching Council and a woman of the Wolf Clan, descended from the Tagish-Chung, Coastal Tlingit, and European people. She joined the CBC last October. Here's what she had to say on air.
It is difficult to have a voice as strong as mine, knowing that I've been told it is strong, and I hear it now. To be on Tagish-Chun territory, Wolf Clan territory, and not to be able to speak the truth is difficult. It contradicts and conflicts with the journalistic standards and practices of the CBC. This is painful. It makes the job difficult, and it makes it ineffective. We get told that it takes time to move a ship. It's an analogy I've heard often. And all it costs is time for mainstream media, but it is costing us bodies. It is costing us lives.
In an email to APTN, Chuck Thompson of CBC Public Affairs wrote, "Unfortunately, Christine Genier has made a decision to leave Yukon Morning, and we are sorry to see her go. Christine is a powerful storyteller who helped us contribute to the conversation in Whitehorse. We thank Christine for her time with CBC Yukon. She will be missed." For more, we're joined by producer Kim Wheeler, a former CBC employee herself, who this week took to Twitter to tell her own story of her time at the public broadcaster and her resignation. Kim, thanks for being with us. Let's start with your reaction to what Genier had to say on air and her statement on social media.
Well, I was, really surprised when anybody at CBC does something like what she did. It took a lot of courage, and I didn't know her personally. I don't know her personally, but I wanted to reach out to her to let her know that she's not alone. That there are a lot of people who have gone through what she is going through or was going through at the CBC, and feeling the need to speak out about diversity in the media.
You explained your decision to resign from the public broadcaster on Twitter. Can you tell us a bit about that and why you felt you wanted to share your story?
Yeah, so I was an associate producer on a show called Unreserved with CBC, and I started on the show when it first started to air as a regional show here in Manitoba, and then it went to a network show. And when the time came to hire a senior producer, of course I applied for the job, as did a few of my other colleagues that I know that worked outside of the public broadcaster, and we all had 15 to 20 plus years experience working in the media, working in Indigenous media as well as mainstream. And when they decided not to interview any of us and instead second a non-Indigenous person, I knew it was time for me to walk away.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. You go ahead.
I was just wondering, what do you think the risks are for Indigenous journalists if they do call out mainstream media?
I think that you are effectively cutting your career short. I call it a CLM, a career limiting move. I have called out people at the public broadcaster several times. I have complained about how things were run within our show, within the show, and how I really believe that Indigenous people should be leading Indigenous story. And when you do that, you get labeled difficult and challenging. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being labeled difficult and challenging, because when I first started in journalism, nobody wanted to tell our stories. We were discouraged from telling Indigenous story in mainstream media. So it was something that I've worked really hard for all of my career. And when they put a non-Indigenous person in charge of a show that has no connection to the community, I can't stand by and take that. I couldn't stand by and take that, and so I left. And I'm not the first person to do that, and I'm pretty certain I won't be the last.
Kim, you're now the producer of Homies Chatting with Ian Campo and Jesse Thistle, among other things. Why did you want to go the independent route?
Because I wanted to be able to control our stories without it being processed through a non-Indigenous lens. I didn't want a non-Indigenous person having the final say on what we were doing on any of the work that I do. Whether I'm, a publicist for an Indigenous organization, or I am, writing my own story, or I'm producing Ian and Jesse, right? We know what our stories are, we know what they mean to us, and we know how to honor those stories properly. And so by participating in their show, I feel a real strength of community with them.
Well, Kim, I'm really looking forward to this Friday's show with the North of 60 crew. Appreciate you taking some time to speak with us here about your story.
Great. Thank you so much.
To the NWT now, where, like many places, there's been an influx of people taking up gardening for the first time. And one not-for-profit is going out of their way to help. From online workshops on how to harvest your own food to giving you materials to get started, including a whole lot of spuds. Our reporter Charlotte Mork-Jacobs has that story.
Jackie Milne knows the North is capable of feeding themselves.
Everything that grows down south can grow up here, and can grow outside because of our extra long daylight hours.
Milne is Métis and has worked for the last 7 years building the Northern Farming Training Institute in Hay River, Northwest Territories. A not-for-profit campus that trains communities on everything agriculture. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit in March, she proposed to the territorial government to fund a seed bank for high-quantity vegetables grown in a cooler climate.
These crops are storable or they can be dehydrated and could, seriously contribute, like what I was recommending, as a target of 25% of our food needs.
Milne says for $100,000 invested in seeds, 25% of the caloric needs of the NWT residents would be met. APTN reached out to the territorial government to ask how her proposal was received, but did not receive a comment by airtime. For Milne, she took matters into her own hands.
These are our seed potatoes all the way from Alberta.
This is what 25 tons of seed potatoes looks like. Milne organized the donation from a farmer in Alberta. For Yellowknife's Dene First Nation, this lot will go to 12 community garden plots, feeding nearly 20 families.
Basically around 1,500 pounds. It's beautiful. Really happy that we got all this. The cost of getting fresh vegetables and that, and especially potatoes, everybody cooks with them and they're healthy for you. And it's good to see that more people are getting into growing them.
It's enough to feed every person in the NWT and is being distributed to all 33 communities.
It teaches everybody, it benefits the community. The members are learning how to grow all this, and that's one of the things that we're learning.
According to the latest NWT Bureau of Statistics, over 23% of households in the territory struggle to pay for groceries.
If you don't have money to buy this food, or now this food's more expensive, if we can have at least 25% available locally, whether we're buying from someone else or producing, it will fill in the gap because we also still have wild harvest.
So if it's a question of whether the North can feed itself, those receiving the spuds say yes, they can, and will do so with a northern twist.
Moose meat and then with pan-fried potatoes, just sliced it, don't even peel it.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Great initiative. Well, the nominees for one of Canada's biggest music prizes have been announced. Details coming up after the break. Here's a look at the rest of your Wednesday weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. 17 with showers in Peace River and Grand Prairie. 15 and rain for Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, and Red Deer. On the west coast, 19 and sunny for Vancouver and Victoria. Showers in 21 in Fort Nelson, 21 under the sun in Prince George, 24 for Old Crow, 16 in Whitehorse. 23 and showers in Fort Liard and Trout Lake, 17 for Yellowknife. 13 with rain for Sax Harbor, 26 in Pawlatuck. 4 in Repulse Bay, 10 in Cambridge Bay. 3 in Resolute, 7 in Joe Haven. Welcome back. The Saskatoon Survivors Group organized a women's ceremony in Saskatoon to offer prayers for everyone during these difficult times. APTN's Priscilla Wolf has the story.
Women in our culture traditionally are the head of the household. They're the matriarchs. They look after the family.
Lorna Arkan helped organize this women's ceremony with the guidance of the elders in Saskatoon's Survivors Group.
For the last 8 or 9 weeks, a couple of weeks ago, we discussed with the Survivor Circle. We have a Survivor Circle here in Saskatoon.
The prayers are for everyone dealing with the pandemic, racism, and especially our children who are in care.
For this group particularly, our concern is our 4,000 children that are in care here in Saskatchewan. We want them to come home. We want our women to be prepared to take care of those children, whether they're yours or not. We want our children home.
Almost 100 women gathered in Victoria Park in the area known as Reconciliation Circle to safely pray by following social distancing protocols. Candice Wasakase emceed the event and says there's power in gathering women together, That's the role of Indigenous women, to offer prayers for everyone.
And we wanted to come together as Indigenous women in Saskatoon to not only honor ourselves, but to recognize the unique teachings and experiences that Indigenous women have in terms of being healers and protectors as the bearer of children and the givers of life.
Yvonne Daniels, who lost her daughter to suicide last year, came to the ceremony because she says she felt it was part of her duty.
Women's prayers are so powerful because we are, you know, we're the fire keepers in our home communities, in our homes, you know. And I promised myself and my daughter that I would try to help people through prayer, and I would give myself from here.
Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Summer is just around the corner, but a new documentary by a Winnipeg Métis filmmaker, which takes place on the ice, will be released online tomorrow. The tournament follows a Manitoba sledge hockey team as they compete in a tournament in Minnesota. Sam Vint made the short film, which features his son Isaac and his novice hockey teammates. The movie is being released a year ahead of schedule since the COVID-19 pandemic canceled or postponed many film festivals where the documentary would have normally premiered. Now the tournament will be available exclusively online. Vint uses his experience as a filmmaker to share the story of para-sports through the eyes of everyone involved.
What we try to show in it is these are kids going down to play sports, and it's nothing more than that, really. What it is a community comes together over the course of that weekend. There's as many people in wheelchairs as there are people who don't need wheelchairs. It's an environment where everybody can just be themselves, and I think that's what they should get out of it. Is they're kids going there, they want to compete, they want to play sports just like everybody else.
And the tournament will be released live at 9 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning on the National Film Board of Canada's website at nfb.ca. The nominees for Canada's prestigious 2020 Polaris Music Prize are in. They're vying for a grand prize of $50,000. And this year, a handful of Indigenous acts are up for consideration. Among longlist nominees is Montreal-based OG Cree performer Anne Aknid. Her trance hip-hop album Dreamweaver was released to rave reviews. Country and folk singer William Prince from Winnipeg received a nod for his album Reliever. A Tata by Reet, an Inuk artist from Nunavut, is also among the nominees. Whoopzoo, a duo from Ontario, tackled colonialism in their award-nominated album Warrior Down. And shortlist finalists will be announced in early July. The grand prize winner will be announced at the Polaris Gala in Toronto in September. Due to COVID-19, it will be live streamed online. Congrats to all the nominees. Past award winners have included Buffy St. Marie, Tanya Tagak, and Jeremy Dutcher. And that is your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.